Miami, Florida, the Sunshine City and narcotics capital of the United States. A police raid on a suspected drugs dealer in the Miami suburbs. This man is a street pusher of cocaine.
We're gonna take your money though, man. Why not? You're a scummy dope dealer, why the should we kill you?
Yet men like this are small fry in America's billion-dollar narcotics business.
You don't think he deserved to die? Hey, Tom, did you threaten to kill this guy? He's saying that he's scared, man.
To catch the big-timers, American authorities set more elaborate traps, like the one they made in March of this year at a hotel near Miami Airport. They bugged a room here. A video camera was hidden in this television cabinet. Hours later, it was switched on. It recorded the shadowy world of large American drug deals. The man sitting on the left of the sofa is being paid thousands of dollars.
Yeah, so you can take this and put it one in each pocket, they'll never see that. Because
there's a knock on the door. He pockets the money before more men come into the room. The men are accomplices there to discuss million-dollar cocaine shipments. These pictures were to be shown across America on television because the man on the sofa, who'd taken the money and was arrested the same day, was the Prime Minister of a British West Indian colony. 2 other members of his government were arrested with him. The arrests broke a wall of silence in the tiny British Caribbean colony, the Turks and Caicos Islands. Tonight, World in Action reveals that for years the islands have been a major center for the smuggling of cocaine into the United States. That it has also been providing financial services for drug traffickers and other criminals, and that Americans blame British authorities for having done little to bring things under control.
I am not sure that the responsible people back in the United Kingdom are fully aware of the extent of the problem or the significance of the problem for us.
How long have you been aware that drugs have been going through the Turks and Caicos Islands?
Well, I would say perhaps 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Until his arrest, life went well for Norman Saunders. He appeared to enjoy the confidence of the island's governor, and on an official salary of under $20,000 a year, was building this $500,000 home. But some local people, at least, were suspicious.
So you weren't surprised that Norman Saunders was arrested?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Were other people?
Well, I don't know. I believe some of them was not surprised.
Was it well known around here that drugs have been going through these islands?
Yes, it was.
Are you surprised that British authorities have done nothing about it?
That's one of the things that I would like to, why they set back, if they knew these things was going on, why they set back for so long.
The British came to the Turks and Caicos Islands 200 years ago and never left, turning it into a last outpost of empire. The Foreign Office appoints a governor who can veto anything local politicians decide. Some money has been spent on tourism and on providing financial services to make the island into a tax haven, but there's been little other progress. For years, the main activity was extracting salt from shallow ocean basins, but this collapsed in the 1970s, causing hardship. As did the closure of 2 large American naval bases on the island shortly after. According to the Americans, local people turned to drug trafficking in the late 1970s.
If you look at a map, South Florida is in reasonably close geographical proximity to South America, but most small aircraft require at least 1 stop on the way back to take on fuel, and the Turks and Caicos Islands are an ideal strategic location for that purpose. They provide safe haven and they provide a transshipment point, okay? And these American traffickers, for the most part they are Americans and to some degree South American traffickers, pump substantial sums of money into the local economy down there for the privilege of landing their aircraft and using the Turks and Caicos as a safe haven.
The island said to be at the center of drug running in the colony is South Caicos. Last month, we flew there to see what had been happening on the island. On landing, we passed planes on the tarmac dumped by traffickers. On the ground, we filmed the air traffic control tower, run until recently by a man now indicted in America on drugs charges. These fuel pumps are said by Americans to have been used for refueling drug planes. They're owned by a company belonging to Chief Minister Norman Saunders. People working at the airport were not enthusiastic to talk to us about drugs.
You never heard any stories about drugs going through this airport?
I heard stories, but I put up something. I don't want to snap.
You had heard stories.
Hey, y'all.
Can we have a word with you about
watch that camera, all
drug
right?
traffic here on
Watch
the
the
island?
camera, man. Don't put the camera on me, man. All
We'd
right?
just like to ask you one or few questions about the drug traffic.
Go talk to somebody else.
What we found away from the airport was more revealing. The island is poverty-stricken. There's no industry, not even any agriculture. The only employment comes from a little conch and lobster fishing, which is in decline. Yet there's definitely money on the island, and some people were prepared to talk about drugs.
When the drugs is flowing through here, right, you had a lot of more jobs. To be frank. You had a lot more jobs? Of course. Because there were people, most especially the oil people, they was able to make more money. They could hire more people. Do you know people that have been involved in the drugs traffic?
Not really, no. Ideas. I can't say I know. No, if I see, yeah.
And they did it for the money?
I guess so, for the money.
Had you heard that the money was good or not so good?
Well, it was good. So long as you get it, it's good.
Since the arrest of Norman Saunders, the amount of drugs ferried through the island has fallen. But why did the British let it go on so long?
They sat back and did nothing about it. The British? The British, yes. Does that surprise you? Of course. Because if they cared so much about us and they know that drugs could ruin us being a small islands, they should have done something about it a long time.
Whatever the reason for this apparent failure to act, it wasn't because the British didn't know what was happening. The British authorities were repeatedly warned about the problem. The first warning came from former Chief Minister Jaggs McCartney, later killed in a plane crash. A member of McCartney's cabinet, Liam Maguire, remembers his concern about drug trafficking.
Jaggs McCartney was acutely aware that it existed, and he knew that it had to be stamped out. He petitioned the governor, sent a copy of the letter directly to London, sent a copy of the same petition to Washington, and decided to take it up there personally to make quite certain it had the necessary impact.
A second warning came a year later in 1980 from this man, Bob Coram, a writer and pilot. He flew his plane into South Caicos Airport and could hardly believe what he saw.
I found widespread, flagrant narcotics trafficking. Aircraft loaded with drugs sat on the runways during the day, were refueled in front of customs officials, police officials, immigration officials. They operated with impunity throughout the islands.
You saw this?
I saw it.
Do you think it would have been difficult for people to ignore?
It would have been impossible for people to ignore.
Why?
It was the prime industry on South Caicos at the time I was there. It was the island's dominant industry.
Did you discuss this with the governor of the islands?
I did, yes. Governor Strong at the time, I believe his name was. He was aware of it. He did not want to discuss it at any great length. He told me, I believe his quote was, "It's a bloody great wart on the end of the British nose."
You're saying he was aware of it?
Yes, he knew about it at the time.
Did he
tried
tell you?
to minimize its significance and its importance, and tried to say that it was an American problem.
Were you surprised at this?
I was astounded by that. It was within his jurisdiction. The Americans have no authority on South Caicos.
Would you have expected him to react differently?
I would have expected him to have been outraged by this kind of flagrant behavior taking place 20 miles from his office.
Yet another warning was given by this man, John Dagley, a British policeman sent to the islands as an advisor to the local force. Coram met him.
He was doing a remarkable job. He's a brave man. His life was in constant danger. There were threats against him. He had to be careful where he slept in the night. I have a great deal of admiration for him.
Do you think he was getting adequate support?
He was getting virtually no support.
Do you feel that he received the support that he needed from the governor?
Definitely not. And he was on a quasi-consultancy basis to the local police force, and that basically put him under the governor, and he was, we thought, had his hands tied behind his back.
John Dagley told the Foreign Office that drug smuggling through the islands was out of control. We asked to interview him, but permission was refused. Governor Strong, now retired, told us there was a drugs problem but was not prepared to be interviewed. An official position of apparent indifference prevailed in London at the time. In 1981, the Foreign Office Minister responsible, Nicholas Ridley, told a House of Commons committee,
"The cost of intercepting drugs is not really a cost which properly falls on the Turks and Caicos government, nor upon the British government. In future, the control of this traffic is one we should encourage the Americans to pay for, because it is in their interests and not in anybody else's."
Is that a view that prevailed among official circles in these islands?
I think it's a view that is still felt by certain politicians here, that the, the drugs problem is, as it were, self-imposed on us by the Americans. I don't, of course. I think that the drugs problem is one excuse me, that we have to tackle as part of our international treaty commitments.
Christopher Turner has been governor now for almost 3 years. During that period, drug smuggling has, according to American officials, continued largely unchecked. The governor says he's concerned and in the face of American pressure has been given more money to deal with drug running. But investigations leading to the Miami arrests were still left to the Americans.
Is it of any embarrassment to you that you are the governor of a dependency where a good portion of its government is now in jail in Miami on drugs charges?
No, I don't think embarrassment is the word I would use either. I think that it's a matter of great sadness to me that it should have gone that route. But I think that also I feel a certain sense of achievement in that the country has responded so well to what was obviously a traumatic time.
But their arrests would seem to suggest a fairly high level of corruption within the government here.
Well, I really can't talk about that yet, you'll appreciate, because the case is still before the American courts. And
of course it's still before the courts, but the American television audience has seen Norman Saunders and Stafford Missick talking about a drugs deal with people in circumstances which one would think were inappropriate for people of their position.
Well, all I can say is that until one's heard the defense, it would be inappropriate for me to speak on that.
The evidence, of course, will speak for itself, but I would suggest to you that the evidence is very strong. I cannot conceive of any set of facts that they would propose that would mitigate what we have developed as evidence.
Had you heard stories that Norman Saunders had been involved in the drugs traffic?
When I came here, one of my early discussions was with him about those rumors. He assured me that he wasn't in drugs. And from then on, we have never had any indication, while we were working in these islands, of his involvement.
Are you saying you don't think there's been enough resources put in by the British to deal with this problem?
I would have to say, yes, that is a problem.
Why do you think nothing happened?
It's hard for me to comment and to understand where that lies in the list of priorities back in Great Britain.
The American attack on British policy doesn't end with drug trafficking. They're also criticizing attitudes towards the financial services on the islands, which have turned them into a tax haven. They say drug dealers and other criminals are using the islands to stash away millions of dollars of criminal income. Drug dealers in America are accumulating literally billions of dollars in notes. The money is useless in America, where large sums of cash are treated with suspicion. It has to be smuggled out of the country into anonymous accounts abroad. It can then be re-imported into the United States and spent with impunity. It's called money laundering, and the Americans want to stop it.
To make use of the money, the huge amounts of capital they generate, they have to find a legitimate way of accounting for that money. That is just extremely difficult to launder through the banks here in the United States. They have to get it out of the United States and then bring it back in a form of clean money.
Do you investigate this money laundering?
Yes, we do. We've been doing it for a number of years now.
Do you find difficulties in such investigations when they lead to tax havens like the Turks and Caicos?
It's extremely difficult because we just can't get information out of those particular tax havens.
Just can't get the information?
We cannot get it under most circumstances.
These investigations have brought the Americans up against another group in the Turks and Caicos Islands, businessmen, accountants and lawyers who gather each evening for a drink at sunset. Among them are the men providing financial services which have turned the islands into a tax haven where companies can be set up easily and in secret. Men such as Finbar Dempsey, the longest-serving lawyer on the islands, and the former Attorney General, Terence Donegan, who wrote the company law the Americans now complain about.
Would the people who set this company up have to be resident in this island?
No.
Would they ever have to come to these islands?
No.
Would the government have any way of knowing who they are?
No.
you think that's a good idea?
I think it's an extremely good idea.
American authorities disagree. They've held Senate hearings and compiled a dossier showing how the islands can be used by traffickers and other criminals.
I would say that Turks and Caicos has secrecy laws that allows the narcotics traffickers or others to have companies that no one can trace to them, and that, in effect, is what they use.
So are you suggesting that places like the Turks and Caicos have been used to frustrate investigations of criminal funds?
Yes, I think you can state that unequivocally.
One case mentioned in the Senate hearings concerned the Fidelity Trust Bank, actually located in the control tower at South Caicos Airport. American customs agents found it played a key role in the laundering of drugs profits made by this man, Robert Walker. Walker was flying drugs through South Caicos to the United States and using the bank to launder $10 million under the nose of the British. U.S. Customs secretly filmed Walker, seen here sitting behind the woman on the left.
The only thing we can't do is we can't bring it in dollars.
The woman is an undercover agent, Bonnie Tischler. Today, she's head of U.S. Customs Financial Investigations.
He had started out with the Turks and Caicos because of the ease in which he could franchise a bank in the Turks and Caicos and utilize that bank to launder cash through.
Was this narcotics money?
Yes, it was.
Would these have been cash deposits?
Yes, always cash.
So the manager would have known that Robert Walker was bringing large quantities of cash to that bank?
That's correct, because simply there was a small safe in the office where they put the cash to hold it overnight before it was deposited someplace else.
The manager of the bank was Alden Durham. Today he's Minister of Public Works in the Turks and Caicos government. He doesn't remember money laundering at the bank.
In my mind, it would have been difficult because I saw the bank statements and I've never seen anything, I've never seen any transactions of that nature.
So you're saying that if in fact it did happen, it would have had to have happened without your knowledge?
That is true. If it did happen, it would have happened. It would have had to happen, without me knowing about it.
The Senate hearings also mention leading lawyers on the island. Former Attorney General Terence Donegan is one of those referred to, but he rejects American criticisms.
We attempt to have a thing called a code of conduct, where we try and keep undesirable people out from forming companies in this country.
And how do you do that?
We're making inquiries of people who want to have companies formed as to where they've come from, who recommended them. We go to the people who recommended them and say, do you know this chap? And is it all up on the level? Is he a decent sort of fellow?
And you make these sort of inquiries about people who come to you to be clients?
Oh, certainly, yes.
How do you explain your involvement then with two men, one Jack Rose and another David Bentley, who've recently been indicted in the United States for defrauding of investors of up to $12 million?
I don't know about that case. It's new to me. Jack Rose, I don't know.
According to the Senate hearings, in this case, two men, since indicted for fraud, transferred ownership of houses to companies in the Turks and Caicos Islands before it's alleged they could be seized by federal agents. Terence Donegan was a lawyer and a director for the companies they used at the time.
You weren't aware that these people had been raided by the FBI?
No, I was not aware of it.
You weren't aware that this case had been thoroughly aired in Senate hearings last year?
No, I was not aware. Nobody told me.
Somebody has to be responsible, and your name is on the documents.
The person who's responsible is the person who actually buys the company.
So you wash your hands of any responsibility for that, or
no,
any responsibility for the people who've been defrauded in the United States?
I'm sorry, but it's got really nothing whatever to do with me. I'm just a cipher in this particular company formation.
Another long-standing lawyer in the Turks and Caicos, Finbar Dempsey, has also been mentioned in the Senate committee.
In the Senate hearings recently, there was testimony to the effect that an island bank accepted a deposit of $575,000 in cash in a suitcase. We have ascertained that the bank involved was Barclays, and that the person who put that money into Barclays was a client of yours.
$575,000 when?
Dollars in cash, in the late 1970s.
I can't say that I remember it.
You can't. The testimony goes on to say that, that another bank was approached by an attorney on behalf of the same client to deposit between $11 and $12 million in cash. We understand that you were the attorney in that case.
Oh, I would like to believe that I had earned some fees out of it, but I can assure you, it certainly was not my office that was involved.
You were not the attorney in that?
I don't think so. I have no recollection of making any approaches to any bank, either for $575,000
nor for the 11 million. I mean, they're figures that I would remember.
You will accept that that does look like money laundering?
I would ask the question, of course, did it happen?
Mr. Dempsey has also been mentioned by the Senate committee in connection with the setting up of a bogus banking institution for Mr. Fred Yeager, a conman convicted of $1 million fraud.
How then did you become involved with a man named Frederick Yeager?
Frederick Yeager came to the Turks and Caicos with very good references. He intended to apply for a series of banking licenses. Yeager never did get his banking licenses.
You were his attorney here. He pleaded guilty to defrauding someone of almost $1 million. Were you aware that he was involved in criminal activities?
No, I was not aware. And had I been aware, I would have certainly got rid of him as a client as quickly as possible.
I understand that his operation here was little more than a telex machine in a building next door to your offices.
This, well, in the building, not next door, pretty close to our offices here.
The judge called his bank a sham. Didn't you know that at the time?
There was never a bank.
If I was an attorney down there, I would want to protect myself. These secrecy havens attract a large spectrum of people, and they're going to attract a lot of people that, particularly from this country, that want to keep things secret. And why do they want to keep things secret? Well, many of them want to keep it secret because it's illegal. And they've got a dilemma. Do they trust? Who do they trust? Who don't they trust? Who do they check on? Who don't they check on? They run the risk, if they don't check on people, of dealing with a criminal element. And it's a very real risk.
Are you surprised that they're embarrassed?
I find it hard to believe that they'd be that naive, that they would be embarrassed.
You think they should know better?
I can't believe that anyone in any secrecy haven, especially in the Caribbean, in this day and age, doesn't know what's going on.
The Americans feel that Turks and Caicos and other tax havens are attracting criminal funds because of the secrecy laws and confidentiality which is offered.
Well, this is, of course, a common charge. There is a great deal of criminal money in the world. The normal precautions against the blatant use of finance centers for the movement of criminal funds is A, the professionalism of the practitioners within the finance center. That, together with the fact that other sources overseas who may be investigating matters like that can rely upon us for cooperation.
Law enforcement on the islands should be able to tell us if Joe Smith has arrived on the island in a Learjet with many boxes of cash. Right now, we aren't getting that type of information.
You're not getting that type of information?
No, we are not.
You're not getting it from British dependencies?
We aren't getting it really from anybody.
So you'd like more cooperation from British authorities in these islands?
Yes, we would. Very much so.
Are you aware of the American allegations?
I'm aware of some of the American allegations, yes.
Are these something that concern you?
Well, I think one has to accept that this has been a growing up experience for these islands, and I'm hoping that very much a matter of the past.
But the problem may not go away. The Americans are getting more cooperation. Barclays, for instance, has tightened up its rules for cash deposits. But the more the islands cooperate, the worse their difficulties seem to become.
If the drug trade is stopped, what will be the effect on the island? I think there are a lot of people who I wouldn't say actually starve, but they wouldn't be able to carry on the things that they're carrying on with now, because eventually there won't be any money around here.
We were getting business from the Cayman Islands, we were getting business from the Bahamas, but that, I'm afraid, stopped. They must be absolutely overjoyed about what's been happening and what's happened to the...
So you're effectively in competition with other tax havens?
Oh, yes, of course we are.
And you feel they're overjoyed at the fact that the recent arrests have killed business here?
Yes, but I mean, we went terribly sad when we found that the Cayman Islands was under constant attack from the American authorities on their financial industry because people were trying to find somewhere else. Now, of course, we got overexposed. We have to go back into our little shells. It shouldn't be very difficult. Nobody knew where we were before. They'll soon forget in the future.
Today, the future for the islanders looks bleak.
This is, after all, a very harsh environment. There's no agriculture. There's only a little bit of fishing. The elements in the climate here which make it so attractive to the tourist, such as good beaches and fine sun, make it a very tough country in which to actually make a living.
Tourism has brought some prosperity, but only to one of the islands. This is the future which haunts local people. The island's official answer to unemployment, breaking stones by hand. It pays poorly and has little appeal. Drugs are still being smuggled through the islands and seem bound to do so, as long as such poverty prevails.